Hey friends, welcome to the channel. If you're new, on today's series we are going to be doing a leak down test on the dozer. I'm going to fill up the radiator full of fluid, and I completely drained the oil last night. On the last series the footage cut out, but it was just white milky oil. You guys didn't really miss out on much. I let that drain overnight, so most of the water should be out of the engine now, and I'm going to put some fresh oil in there. But before I do that, I'm going to fill up the radiator, do a leak down test, and leave the oil plugs off so I can see if any water's leaking into the oil system, just to make sure that my job that I did fixed the problem. 99% sure that it was just that freeze plug, but you never know. If I put oil in there and just cross my fingers, then something might still be wrong. So instead of doing that, I'm going to do the leak down test, and then we're going to put fresh oil into it. And also we gotta fix this oil line right here. It's leaking. I might have damaged it. It's just so hard to get to. So I might just take the whole thing off and get a good look at it real quick. These things are pretty tricky to install, so I think I might just take that off and take a look at it. Might have to go to town and get a new line. And then the governor isn't quite giving it too much throttle. I think when I heated this spring up, it's too soft. So I think I'm going to tighten up this spring, and maybe that'll help it not give it so much throttle, because it's really just giving it like full throttle. So I'm going to tighten up this spring because it stretched out when I was heating this up with the torch. Or maybe I'll just click that and make it shorter. See how that does, because it's already all the way loose in the bolt. But if I tighten this up, it's going to kind of get in the way of the linkage. So I'll probably just snip this spring and make it a little tighter. I want to get this engine to where it's just purring and not over revving at all, because the expectancy life, I believe it's around 250 hours you're supposed to overhaul them. I want to take care of this engine, and hopefully I can get more than 250 hours out of it before I have to do a complete teardown on that. But anyways, let's get into it. I'm just putting a little bit of detergent in here just to help clean out that oil. And I did do a leak down test with diesel, so I'm just going to keep rinsing it out with a little bit of detergent. Nothing crazy. I don't want to get it too bubbly in there so the cooling system's not working properly. Okay, so we got that plumb full, so I always like to fill it up as full as possible so it has more pressure to gravity flow into the air pockets. We do have a radiator leak, it looks like. Or no, that's actually the overflow. Maybe not. So just in case you're new to the channel, this is how you get the air pockets out of the pony after you refill it with radiator fluid. Pretty good. Also, I have this old solar panel, but an animal or something stepped on it in the storm and cracked it, so I don't know if it got moisture damage or not, but I'm gonna attempt to put this on here as well. Let's see if that charging light actually works. Oh yeah, this thing is just pretty bad. It's like the cheapest one I could find at Harbor Freight. I think it was like $10 for this little solar panel. So used to this light would come on, so I'm pretty sure it's not working. I don't know. I'm just gonna throw it on there. Have a little bit of a leak out of the hydro pump, but it looks like it just leaked a little bit and stopped leaking, so that makes me happy. I didn't want the whole tank to drain out while it was sitting. That would be terrible. Okay, so you can see there's no water coming into that drain pan, so that's great news. Let me get the oil plugs on, and then we'll fill it up full of fresh oil and work on that oil line over there. Okay, we got the oil plugs on. I already got footage on that. If you want to see that, just look into my previous series. I'm going to check this brand new filter that's on here just to make sure there's no dead mice or anything weird that went through the oil pump and might cause me some concerns. I'm hoping I could use it for another flush, because these oil filters are pretty expensive. Yeah, it still looks pretty good, so I'm going to run this one for another flush. I'm going to put the cat filter on there once I wrap this up. Get that nice and snug. Next step, put some oil in here. speedy flow right here. Just in case you're new to the channel, I always use these speedy flows whenever I have to move a lot of volume with oil. They do fill up pretty dang quick, so you got to be careful you don't overfill the machine because it's got this vent hole right here. Okay, this machine calls for 3.5 gallons of oil, and I'm just gonna put the cheap Traveler 1540 diesel oil in there just to flush out the engine. And then once I get it flushed, I'm gonna put the Rotilla 1540 in there. Shouldn't be anywhere near close, but I'm gonna double check anyways. So we're just starting to register. Probably like another gallon and a half. I always like to put about a quart or two extra above the fill line because once that engine primes and gets all the air bubbles out, it'll suck down a little bit. Usually you don't have to go in there twice if you do it just right. Well, that is about a little below half on the 5-gallon pail. I only got about a gallon left in this pail. This thing holds a lot of oil. That was probably too much. Okay, so we're right above the full line, about a 1/4 inch. That's how I like to do it. By the time it primes all the air out, it should be right at full. And you also want to make sure you fill up those oil filters full of oil if you're doing an oil filtered service. Okay, so that was pretty quick with the speedy flow. Works really good for anything you gotta move quite a bit of oil. Okay, now let's address this oil line. I don't even know if I can get the camera in there to show you what I'm doing. Okay friends, I'm pretty sure I just forgot to tighten up this oil line. It was pretty loose, unless it just came loose. But let me stick the camera up there. You can see that. So I'm gonna snug that up real quick. It still feels loose, so something's not right. So this thing was stuck in there. It wasn't quite compressing like it should. So I'm hoping I can sand this down maybe a little bit and get it to fit in there tightly so it'll seal. It's kind of squished at the end. It's like an oval. So I'm gonna try to fix that and put it back in there. And hopefully this bottom side's kind of crowned out. So maybe I need to crown it out like that. This side's not crowned. This comes in from the bottom end, from the oil pump to the top, and feeds oil to the cam. So you really want to get this thing fixed. So I think it's supposed to be bulged out on the end here. So I got some needle nose and I put them in there and bulged it out. I don't have the correct tool for this kind of stuff. So the one was already kind of bulged out, and I also lightly sanded this surface so it's really smooth. So hopefully it'll seal up now. It's just a soft metal, so it's supposed to crimp in there. I don't think I did it right, and this flare went past the pipe, so it didn't snug up. Okay, I'm gonna try to get this in. It's kind of hard and the camera can't really see. You have to pry this together and then put it in. So I'll let you know when I get it done. Okay friends, we got that line on. I cleaned it up pretty good so I can see if it's gonna start leaking. It's supposed to go underneath that compression release. I believe that's what that is on the other side there. It's about to break and I can't mess with it much more. I'm gonna have to get a new one made in order to get it back there. So just so I can get this thing running today, it's kind of hanging out there. A branch can get stuck on it. But so before I would wiggle it and the pipe felt loose. Now I wiggle it and it feels tight. So we got that little mushroom end on there and it made a compressing fitting. Okay, now we're gonna hook up the support for this hydraulic line. I would not recommend this, but we are using baling wire. I am gonna double it up. I won't have to buy a $300 hydraulic line because these are big and they look expensive. I don't want to buy one of those. Look like it already took quite a bit of damage. Okay, so we got oil, we got radiator fluid. Actually not leaking radiator fluid anymore. That's great news. Next step is, before I take this up the driveway, I want to make sure the cam is getting oiled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this with the valve cover off just to make sure those natural gas lines or those oil lines, super old school, are supplying oil to the cam, because it probably would survive just fine just making it up the driveway, but I don't want to risk it. So it's just 4 nuts I got to take off. Kind of boogered up the threads a little bit, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Okay, before I take the valve cover off, I don't want dirt to get in there, so I'm trying to get everything done before I do that. I'm going to stiffen up this spring here because I messed it up with the torch. This thing's kind of revving too high. It's really bad for the engine, so Hopefully I can modify this one so it's stiff again. Oh yeah. So hopefully it's not going to rev out as much. I might have to adjust this bar, but it shouldn't be revving that much. I think it's because that spring softened up when I had to torch this to get it off. I had to put a little heat on there so I wouldn't strip it. Okay, next, the pony motor is just a little low on oil because this gasket on the breather tube, this thing loosened up a little bit. So yeah, that's not good. So let's get that addressed. I like to use the 1540 diesel oil for these pony motors because the oil gets diluted real quick from this carburetor. So it just needs a little bit of oil. Okay, we're right at full. You just want to make sure the oil's still thick. See how we still have some thickness? You can smell it too, but the thing always smells like gas, the oil, so not a good thing. But main thing is just, it shouldn't smell like gas once you get it running right, and make sure that oil's nice and thick. If it gets thin at all, change it, because it's way cheaper to change the oil. These things only hold like, I don't even know, it's like not even a quart of oil, maybe 3/4 of a quart. So not even worth it. Just change the oil. It's super easy to do. Okay, now let's get some gas in it. Now that the carburetor's working right, I'm going to try to keep this tank topped off. That way no particles will float to the bottom. If you run your tank empty, you risk sucking in all that crud in the bottom of it. Your filters will last a lot longer. Just keep it topped off. The fire extinguisher thing should start right up. We're going to plug in the lift pump. Probably can't see because of the sun. Starter motor's good. Yep. Okay, we're disengaged. Okay, we're turning the fuel onto the pony. Coils on. We gotta adjust the governor. This is ridiculous. So I guess that made it rev out more. I need to stretch this spring out a little bit. See if that does anything. That might have been too much. I think I'm just gonna back off this pony motor linkage real quick. I don't want to damage this engine. It took me so long to get it going, and it's pretty piped out right now. So I believe pushing forward is full throttle. So I need to shorten this up a little ways. I'm gonna go in 4 turns and see what it sounds like then. I don't have a kill switch on this thing. I guess I do now. I can just unplug the mag. 1. Well, maybe I can just go 1, and then I gotta adjust the carburetor from here. I don't know if I'll be able to go as long as I brake. That screw's gotta screw in, and they just make it so hard to get to. It's ridiculous. How about from right here? Like, I can't do this while it's running. This is crazy. Let's see what that does. Hopefully it doesn't try to blow up on me now. Man, that was scary. There's all this work to this engine. And I have to get something on that clutch because it's just getting toasted in the disengage selection. It's supposed to have a brake on it, like a clutch brake, like a semi has. And if it's just stuck disengaged, even if it's in neutral, some old timers are telling me that you can toast the clutch because it's just rubbing. I'm gonna get a strap or something, I almost forgot. And then some guys are telling me just to run it a little bit and the clutch might start working a little better. Probably needs serviced. I'm gonna service it, but I want to drive it up to my house first before I get much farther with this project. Okay, so that screw's threaded. Let's just see how bad it's gonna be now. Coil on, lift pumps on, fuel pressure, neutral. Let's go. Fire! Okay, maybe I need to unscrew that screw. So I turned it the wrong way, so I'm going to unscrew it. Okay, it says it has low oil, but I'm thinking just because it's running it has low oil. So I'm killing the engine, that way I can check it while the oil goes back down there. I almost put the whole 5 gallons in there. The spec sheet online says it holds 3.5 gallons. I don't know about that, unless it's going into the transmission or something. Now it says we're pretty full. Hey friends, really appreciate you for tuning in this long. If you made it to the end of the video, I sure do appreciate it. Really helps out the algorithm. So we finally got this machine up here and running after I worked on that pony motor for a long time. It actually wasn't that hard to get the actual diesel engine going itself, but that pony motor was a lot of work. So the hydraulic pump was leaking pretty bad. I was kind of in a hurry when I was operating it. I kind of wanted to take a little more time and smooth things out a little better, but with that hydraulic pump getting ready to go out on me, I was like, I better get this up the hill. If it seems like I left things in kind of rough shape down there at the pond, and the road was kind of rough as well, but I just took one light scrape coming up the driveway. It actually worked out pretty good. I've never operated this dozer before, but I have a lot of time in skid steers and other tractors. I know how to grade pretty good. This thing has 3 clutches on it, 2 steering clutches and 1 main clutch, and the main clutch, as you can see in the video, I had to hold it with my left arm, so can only operate with one hand. It's kind of tricky trying to turn and hit the blade at the same time with one hand, but it was pretty exciting for me to get this 80-year-old dozer running again. I was starting to wonder if it was even going to be possible, but we got it running. I was working on this thing in the snow, in the rain. It was really cold, and we had some weird weather in January. We were getting a bunch of snow on the west coast, which is pretty weird. Normally around Christmas time is when we get our snow, but yeah, we finally got it going. So feel free to follow me on this next journey where we rebuild the hydraulic pump and we get this little D2 5J Caterpillar dozer to where it is a reliable machine.